everyone. Today I am sharing the October 2022 Call Me Crafty SheetLoad of Cards template. This one is awesome. I absolutely love it because I get to use up my scraps. So it is designed around 3 6x6 pieces of pattern paper, and you can see there are no scraps left over if you use a full piece. But I've decided to use some of the loads of 1.5 inch strips that I have acquired. So I did a project some time ago that left me with loads of these pattern paper strips, and this card template works absolutely perfectly. So I have grabbed some out of my stash that I think I can sort into something that will make sense to use together. There are 3 pieces of pattern paper in the sketch design, and so I'm putting all of these different papers in piles of 3, and then I'm going to use an A2 white card base, which is 5.5 by 4.25, and then you can see I've got some craft backing panels that are 5.25 by 4, and I will layer up the card design on top of that. I'm working through these, matching things up. I've got some gorgeous blue and yellow combinations and then some of the pink combinations also. I'm running through and just cutting these down to the right sizes. So there is a 1 inch strip that goes down the edge of the card, and that's 4.5 inches long. And then there's another 2 pieces that are the 1.5 inches. One is 3 inches long and one is 2 inches long. So it's very easy to cut these down, and if you have a scrap box, then I highly recommend you dust it off and work through that big pile to create some fantastic cards. I normally like to link to the papers that I use below in the description, but for these, I really honestly don't think any of them would be available anymore. They are a combination of Kaiser Craft papers and Project Life. And honestly, I don't think I would find them. So please use anything that you have. And if there's a color combination that you love, maybe you could focus on that. I love the teal and yellow. I think that's one of the most impactful ones that I created. So I'm just running through here. These butterflies are foiled. So I did try and pick an element for the cards that had something a little bit special about it. So 2 of the pattern papers are kind of neutral and simple. And then that one that goes the horizontal across the card, I tried to make that the feature. It did depend what I had in my stash, but that was really my design thinking when I worked through it. I also like to create cards in bulk, so you'll often see me cut down pieces for the cards even if I don't actually assemble all of them. I put them into my stash and then I use them down the track when all I need to do is glue all the components together. I sometimes also donate them as card kits, so that inexperienced crafters, all they need to do is use some glue and put together those elements to create something amazing. Right here I'm cutting down the white panels. These are going to be used to host the 3 elements of the pattern paper, and they are 4 3/4 inches by 3 3/8, so a slightly different measurement than usual. Now you can see here that I'm just trying to lay everything out and really make sure that everything works as I anticipate. I'm using the craft backing panel as I talked about before. I'm using exactly the same color for the sentiment, which I have not yet stamped, and I'm just layering it just to see if the balance of the card looks good. And I'm happy with how it landed, so now I'm working through the rest of the bulk card making. So I'm really doing this bulk style. I've cut out all the white panels. I've got all of my pattern papers pre-cut, and I'm using my ATG to just run through and attach them in bulk. I have not shown you the footage of creating all of the cards because I'm compiling here 2 sets of 12. So I have 12 with the butterflies, and then I have another 12 that are similar with sort of the red and green stripes on the left-hand side of the screen. So in total, I created 24 cards, and then I created 3 bundles of card elements that would make up card kits for donation. Do you use colored cardstock for any of your layers? I use white as much as I can. Every now and then I will use black. But for this card design, that's why I decided to add the craft layer, because I really wanted to be able to use white. But I'm not sure, does everybody do that? Or am I the one who likes to use just cheap, simple white cardstock for my layers? I don't know, maybe share below if you use colored cardstock or if you stick to the basics like I do. Speaking of white layering, I'm now doing that behind the butterflies, and I just stick them to scrap white cardstock where I can, and then I trim them down. And you can see here I'm doing my trick of adding multiples to one scrap of paper so that I can do this more quickly. I'm generally doing this and watching a movie or watching a TV series or something at the same time. So I really find it kind of therapeutic to do these in bulk. I know not everyone likes to create so many cards, but for me, I get to the end and I have a giant pile and I love it. I think I mentioned earlier that I decided to use the craft paper for my sentiment. I did that so that I'd have a really good color match and I wouldn't have to worry about competing paper. The trick with this though was because it's really thin craft paper, it's from like a sketchbook, like a craft sketchbook. I was a bit worried about what ink I was going to use. So rather than use something really strong like a black, I decided to just use a brown, so it was a bit of a tone on tone look. And I specifically chose a sentiment that didn't have too much detail. This is from the Simon Says Stamp Square Saying stamp set, which is retired. So it's not available anymore, but I will link something similar below. I picked something really, really simple so that I could create some generic cards and I could use them for many, many different purposes. I'm just using my Misty here to stamp these out and it really does help a lot. Whenever I'm trying to do something in bulk when it comes to sentiments, I regularly use my Misty so that everything is lined up and I can run through and do it really, really quickly. Keeping in mind that I've done 24 cards for this video today, but for the card kits, I've made up about another 40. So when I ran through and stamped the sentiment, I was stamping out about 60 to 70 of them. So really the Misty is super, super helpful. Okay, so I'm now attaching that sentiment to the panel and I don't have to be too worried about the length of the square because when I put the butterfly paper on top, it's going to cover it up just a little bit. So I'm flipping the panels around and I'm doing them from top down so that that border is exactly how I want it to be at the top of this little feature panel. Upside down might look a little strange, but I do these quite regularly because it just helps me get my alignment correct. And I'll often turn things sideways as well. I'm now lining up those panels on top of the craft cardstock. And this is a little bit fiddly initially, but once you figure out exactly what the border is supposed to be, it means that when you do the next ones, they're a little bit easier. If I'm struggling to line things up, then I do take the time to really line it up on this Altenew craft mat. It has the exact dimensions of an A2 card, either landscape or portrait, right there in the middle of the mat. And so sometimes that is super helpful if you've got something really, really fiddly. The next step is just adding it to the A2 card base. There are so many little bits of paper that you need to do with this card sketch, but I really, really love this one. My ATG got a really good workout. I didn't really show myself using it much in this video. I really trimmed this down so that you weren't seeing what I consider to be the boring stuff. But I'm now using my liquid glue to add the last piece. And as I said before, it overlaps each of those papers a little bit and I'm pushing it as close to the bottom of the sentiment part as I can so that it's got a smaller strip below it. If you are enjoying the video, it would be great if you could hit the like button and don't forget to check out the rest of the collaboration team by using the hashtag in the title below. I have put a link here to another video that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.